So, hi everyone. Hope you're all doing well. So, I'm like I'm here to share a Java Spring Boot application, a backend application, which has the following features. We'll do all the CRUD operations on MySQL database using JPA and we'll also implement REST API and we'll use cache and we'll also use different profiles. We'll later on see the what are profiles and how it can be used easily, and we'll also fetch the data and store it in a text file and also create a pie chart out of it, which can be later used to display on the UI. And also we'll see on how can a custom exception can be created along with the JUnit case, post which we can see about basic concepts of Java, like overriding hash code and equals method, downloading an image, and Jack Saras and Hibernate code. So let's get started. The prerequisite is that please ensure Maven is installed. I am using Windows OS. Maven is installed and Java is installed, and it is set in the environment variables like in Java home and path, and make sure we have the same version when developing the Java application and running the jar file. So yeah, I am using STS as IDE. We can download this from spring.io. So as soon as we download, we can go to file, new, and project, and spring starter project. As soon as we click on next, the project will be downloaded from spring.io. We can give our name, class path, and everything. It's a Maven project, and here we can tell what are all the dependencies we need. For example, JPA, Hibernate, and everything. And it will come as soon as we click project. It may take some time, and project will be downloaded. And as soon as it is downloaded, we will have this file which has the main function, and it should run properly. So after creating, we can run here only. Right click on the project, run as Spring Boot app. We can run here only. Since we are using profiles, we can use our terminal to run our projects. So we just have to go to the directory where our project is there. In this case, in this directory we have to go and make sure we have the pom.xml file. In this folder itself, we can run the command mvn clean install -dskip test equal to true, and this will download all the dependencies, and the project building will become success. I'll walk you through the code in just a second. So the build is success, and if we go to the target folder, here we can see the jar file hospital. In this case, I have the project name is hospital, so the jar name will be this hospital.jar file. So if we can just run the jar file, if we can just run the if we can just run the jar file using this command, we can see, here we can see by default no active profile set. So the by default, even if the user has not given anything, a default profile will be set. That is because a profile is something which an application has. For example, we have profiles like development, testing, production, and everything. So if we take an example of school, and say some teacher is having access to a database and student is having access to another database, so we can do that using the same application for creating a different profile for teacher, students, principal, management, every researchers, spiritual and persons and everything. So, and each profile can have its own database, its own configuration, and we can create as many profiles as we want. So yes, now the application has started. We can see it has been started. So what I'll do is I'll just terminate this application and terminate the application and starting the application with the test profile command. So the thing is that I have in my project already created a three profile. This one is the default application.properties, above which I have created prod and test. So if this profile can be created using this property file itself. So this is my test profile, and no, sorry, yeah, this is my test profile. So let's see. This I have just created for use. We'll go and run this application using the test profile. Here we can see this active equal to test jar. So what happens is I have coded in such a way that whenever the test file runs, a message comes that I am in test profile. So here we can see, right, here in test profile. So this comes only if you are running the test profile. Note that in the default profile this did not come. I have done this just to differentiate between the different profiles. So if you can go to this this test, this implements a command line runner. So what does this do? And here I'm using an annotation called at the rate profile and the test name. We have to create any profile using this application hyphen the profile name dot properties. So since I have given the test, I have used at the profile test, and I have just printed in test profile. The thing is that command line runner is an interface which starts whenever a Spring Boot application is started. So no external API or nothing is needed to trigger this thing. So whenever the application start, this also start. And that's it for test profile. Now I'll just terminate this thing and I'll continue with another profile where we can do all the database activities. So yeah, if we can go to this application.properties, this is a dev profile I have used, and we can specify which is the profile which we have to activate here itself. But I have just commented this because we deploy the jar file, right? So we can set the profile there itself. That is the easy, and that is the requirement of the profiles. So here, since we are using JPA and here I'm configuring the database connections here. So this is the MySQL database, and this is a hospital table which I have made. Here. So if you can go here, here we have database configuration. This URL. If you can install the MySQL database and MySQL workbench, which I'm using here, we will have an URL JDBC connection. Hope you know JDBC and basics of Hibernate and Springs. And this is the port number, and this is the database name which I have created, the hospital. The thing is that we are using patient information to store into the database. I'll show you in just a second. And we have a username root and driver class name as driver, and every MySQL will have a dialect. So I'm using this dialect for this profile, and I'm just taking this SQL statements to come true. I mean, we can see SQL statements in the terminal, and we are enabling the cache, and that's it. And if you go to this MySQL, I have created one database called hospital, and Yeah, if you can go to this hospital show tables, since I have already created it, I mean, the thing is that Spring Boot automatically creates a table if table does not exist. If we use this DDL auto update, so we need not create the table. Only thing is we have to create is the database name. So since I had already performed few tests before recording the video, I have already have some table. We'll insert the data again. It's okay, no issues. So I already have some data. It is, oh, we have 9 data. Okay, fine, it's okay. So it has 9 data, and I have made primary key as ID. So after seeing the we'll run the program first. After seeing the output, like we'll go through the code. So we'll run the jar again. This time we'll remove the profile test and put it on dev and click on enter. Yeah, it is in the target folder. We'll put dev. Yeah, and it's starting. So now we can see here the following one profile is active and its name is dev. Here we can see, right? Yeah, that's it. And here we can see the hospital application has been started. And yeah, that's it. So we use a postman to check everything. So what we do is first we'll get all the profiles. So to get all the profile, like you know the basics of HTTP requests, right? Get, put, post and delete, and these are the basics of RESTful API 2. So what we'll do is we'll first get all the patient present there. So what I have done is copy this thing, paste it, and send the request. It should be get here, and the URL. We'll see why this URL has been used when we go through the code. And if you click on send the request, and can you see we have got 200. 200 means the request which I have been sent is successful, and we got all the data present here. All the data, all the 9 data. And if we go to the terminal, yeah, we can see this debug thing and Hibernate SQL query and everything, all these patients. So yeah, on the postman also we can see, and if we can open in any browser like Google Chrome, Firefox, Edge, here also we can see all the data coming here for get request only. So yeah, get is working. And what if you want to put some data? That also we can do. Here we can see only 9 entries, right? So what I'll do is I'll put some another data here. So let's say, I mean to put means like add. So to add some data here, we have this URL. The thing is we are using URL because say we have some some UI, like we have all these things, UI field text boxes to enter, and if you click on submit button, the same URL will be made here, like, right? So in the URL we have as soon as we are building any application, we are using localhost, and the port number by default is 8080, and add is the function name which I am using here. We'll go through the code in just a second after understanding this. So add is the function name, and yeah, we'll go through this one. And these are all the like required fields. We'll explain them when we go through the code. And if you are putting some adding some data, we have to change the request to post, and we'll change the ID to say 10 because we had 9 entries, right? And name equal to some name, say QEX something, some name given here, and this is equal to say anything, and the severity, say it's like 9. The thing is, this is because the data which I'm storing is of a patient in an hospital. So every patient will have an ID, a name, a disease for which he is admitted to, he or she, and the severity of the disease. And I have made ID as a primary key as it's required in SQL, and made this as an entity class. So if we are saving data, we have to give all this information. So that's the reason I am putting those information in the URL. We can also create a front-end page, and if you click on the submit button, this is the URL which hits the database, which hits the backend. So since you are adding data to database, the request will be posted, and if I click on send, and see, we got the 200 response and patient added successfully. That is because the jar file is already running in the terminal, and we can see Hibernate insert data into database and everything. So if we can go to the MySQL and click on the show all tables, we can see data has already been inserted to the database. And similarly, if we want to update any database, update the existing data in the database, then we can use put method. So this is the URL for put method. Let me copy it first. Okay. In the database, we have number 3 as ID, number 3 as can, UV, and 2. So we'll change something. We cannot change the ID, of course, because that is our primary key. So we are using the put request, and we are changing the ID of a patient 3 ID here, and name to some random, and this is I don't know. So in the database we had some different name for 3, and using the postman here in the body we are putting the data, and if we send the data and patient updated. So if you can go to the database and just check it, the third item got affected, IDK and random. So will the same be reflected while if we can get all the patients? Of course, if we can reload this, we got the same thing. We just restarted the app, reload it, and we got the same thing. So by the same thing we can do the delete operation too. Let me finish that one also. Yeah, let us delete one entry called some 9th entry. We have this scan, right? We'll delete the 9th entry. So what we can do is we just have to run this URL. The thing is that we are deleting the 9th entry, so we can modify the 9th entry, get the request to delete, and if we can send the patient delete, yeah, the patient updated. And yeah, if you go to the database and refresh, we don't have a 9th element, it got deleted. So what if we want to delete the whole table? That also we can do using this command. Just see how it works. If we can copy paste everything, delete all, so this deletes everything, and all elements got deleted is the status, and delete from patient and everything. If we go to the database and just refresh, nothing is there. So how does it work? So let's deep dive into the code. And yeah, before we deep dive into the code, I just inserted 3 values in the database to check about that file and chart thing. So what I'll do is I will use this URL with a get request, because that's how I have coded, and I'll show you the code. With this URL as save patients, and we have 3 data here. And if we go to this downloads folder of mine, We don't have any data as of today except some screen recording. This is not working in my system. Let it be. So we have in FileMaker.class I have created this output.txt and output.png image, which is the file which will be stored in downloads folder. As of now I don't have. So when I run this command, say send, it is sending request, and the response is yes. If you go to the terminal, we can see the chart saved and file saved. Here we can see this, right? So what I'll do is I'll go into this downloads folder and I'll just refresh this and see we got output.png. If you can just open this output.png, so we have this patient availability report. We can see this patient availability report or distribution. So I have made this calculation as the severity and how this works, everything according to the calculations. And if I can open this output.txt, then we have all the data from the database in the table format. So this we have achieved. And coming to the cache thing, when I sent that request, the get request, so here we can see in DB connection to all the patients. So this is because like the data will be fetched from database, right? So I have printed in the database we are fetching. So if I can go and send the same request again, we got the response here, but we did not get that in DB connection to all patients again. That is because the data from the second time will be coming from cache and not the database. So the repeated hitting of the database is prevented, so it becomes faster and less load is on the database. So if you can go to the coding part now, this is a controller class. And yeah, sorry, I'll just try this prod profile also. So in the prod profile, if you can see, I'll go to the controller class in just a minute. I have created one more database in my MySQL called HOSPPD. This is the table like we have here, HOSPPD. So if I go, I have already inserted some data like say 5 data, then it has a fox, bark and everything. So what I'll do is I'll just terminate this and I'll run the prod profile. I'll not be doing all that all the CRUD operation, but just to show the difference between the profiles, I'll just get all the data in the prod profile. So I'll run the same command. The URL will be same, only the database name will change according to the profile. So what I'll do is this is the old data from the old profile. We can see this data here. Not this data. With fire. Yeah, now we got another data having 5 profiles, so punch, fox and everything. So these are the data. Just to be sure, if I can delete one data from this profile, say I'll delete the second data, fox. So if I can do and click on send, so the patient is updated. If I can go to this and note that I'm using this data here, if I can just refresh, we don't have the 2. So different profile uses the different database according to which we have configured. So now I promise we will go into the code. So This is the application.properties, which is the mandatory file. So here we have configured everything, and we have enabled the cache here. And in application.test properties also, like we just have to create one and specify which we have to use. For test and dev, I mean dev means application.properties. I have used the same database name, except for the prod properties, which I have used a different database. So how does it know? If we can go to this patient controller class, yeah, this is the controller class. I have annotated with @controller, and I have used AutoWire for patient service. So patient service, this actually does the database operation. We'll go to that. So we have get, put, post and delete, right? So I have used the post mapping, and the URL for that is /add. So do you remember, right? Where is that? Yeah. For getting all the patients, we were using this. For putting the patients, we were using this post, this command. So here we are using this add. Do you remember this add thing? So the same is used here also. Yeah, the same is used here also, add. So what I'm doing for add is, for add profile, it should go. So as I have already showed you the patient, if the patient has to be stored there, then it has to be annotated with @entity, and one should be made as primary key, and that is ID, and we have getter, setters, and two string methods. So if we can go to this patient controller, I have made this method to add a patient details to the database, which returns the response entity. Like if it is okay, 200 will be returned as a response, and it will be showed on the console or the postman which we use. So the patient, patient will have many things, right? So in Spring Boot we need not specify the ID, name, and everything. We just have to print it takes a patient object. That's it, and everything, the fields will be taken care by the Spring Boot itself. And yeah, that's it. And if you go inside this save method, there is another class called patient service. So what, and this is, since it is a service class, I have annotated with @service. What does this service do? This service will save the data into database, which does all the operations for the database. For this service to work, this has a dependency of patient repo. So if you can go to this patient repo, this is basically an interface. This is a repository. Since this is a repository, we have to annotate with @repository, and with this extends JPA repository. And if I am extending this JPA repository, we will have a primary key which is in the second argument. Primary key is ID, which is integer, and the class, the entity class which I'm trying to save into the database, that is patient. We have to provide these two parameters, and yeah, we'll come back to this later when we see the other methods. So here I have created this patient repo object using AutoWire configuration, and we have all the methods defined in the JPA configuration interface which you have extended, and the public void say, what does it do? This takes the patient objects that will come from the controller, and I have made this custom exception. If patient.getName is null or the patient.getName is empty, then this will throw this exception, the patient name is required, because without name we cannot save it, right? So if we can just go to this demo, I'll give some ID as say 7 in the postman, and name I'll not give anything. Can you see this URL? Name I have not given anything. Some ID has been given, and if I send, there is an error, 500 error. So what is the error? If you can go to this error, Yeah, here we can see the patient name is required, validation error. So how does this come? This came from here. So I'm putting, this is the custom exception I have done. So if you can go to this class in the exception directory here, I have created this exception, public class exception, which extends the runtime exception, and I have defined my own method and string message super.message. So that's it. We have created our own exception. So this is for getter, and to use the cache we have some annotations called cache put, cacheable and everything. So what does cache put do? Cache put do annotations. It saves the data in newly entered data into the cache. So that's it. And to enable the cache we have to we have to put this annotation @enable in our main class, and we have to do this cache configuration also. We have to create one more class where we have to say the Spring Boot application that we are using cache, and its configuration has been done here. And since this is a configuration class, we have to annotate it with @configuration so that Spring Boot understand, the configuration has been done here. And this is a bean, and this cache manager is important. So this cache manager is responsible for all the configuration to be saved and run. And we are using this caffeine cache which is already inbuilt in the Spring Boot applications. Redis cache, yeah, that's it. And all its dependencies will be in this pump.xml file. So we have all the dependencies for chart and everything. I'll post the code in the description down below. So what happens to get all the patients? So since a new patient has been put here, all the cache will be stored in the key value pair. So the key will be the patient ID, which is the primary key I have defined, and the patient value is of patient's objects. So all the cache will be stored like this. And if I'm fetching all the data from the database, for which I'm using get method again. So get method means here get mapping, and the URL I'm passing is patients, as I have passed at that time. Get all patients, yeah, patients here. And here, yeah, patients. So what it does is response entity, it just checks if the response is good or bad. Like the response can be given to the requested URL from the client. So what it does is patient service got out, yeah, and it returns okay and the patients. So that's what it returns. Before returning, the patient service dot get all patients, and these patients method will return all the patients, and that will be stored in the list format. So it will be in the list format. So if we can go inside this patient service, yeah, so this we have this save method, right? Save and find all. This is the internal inbuilt method of the Spring JPA. So we need not do any configuration. This find all and save is already inbuilt. So we need not define anything. Just we have to define is what type of object we are saving, and find all doesn't need that also, because only one type of object will be saved in one table, right? So it will fetch everything in the and return in the form of list, and that will be stored in the cache. And the second time database will not be hit, and it will come from the cache. So that's how it works. And for get mapping, say if we are here, that comes the twist, and we are getting only particular ID, particular patient, and not everyone. We don't want everyone. So what I'm doing is the patient and the ID. So which patient we have to get? How does Spring know which patient we have to get? For that we have to provide ID. So this ID will be generated dynamically, right? So this the syntax is it should be enclosed in the curly braces, and it is a path variable. So we have to annotate this ID with the path variable annotation @path variable, and This also returns the patient object. That is why we have patient here in the response entity. So if you can go to this and this ID which has to be defined is passed into this get a patient. So if you can go to get a patient, here we have the value and key, for which the first time it will be stored from the database, and second time the cache will take care of everything here. Yeah. So what happens is the patient object, it returns the patient object and with the ID of integer type. So we are using optional here because it's a good practice to use optional. Say for example we don't have that patient, so it should not return or it should not throw an exception, right? So it should return something. So we use the optionals. So and patient report out find by ID. The twist is if you can go inside this patient report or find by ID, this actually is in the CRUD repository. So this CRUD repository is from the CRUD repository, which extent repository. This is an inbuilt method, but since this is also inbuilt, we have to define this in our patient report.java, the interface. Here we have defined it. The reason is how for save and find all, fetching every element need not be defined here because the Spring Boot uses inbuilt proxy objects and reflection and dynamic code generation for everything. But since ID is something which is defined by the user, we have to define that method here using find by ID, because this is something special, right? ID we have defined, but if save and all, it does not have any particular ID, so we did not define here, but for this we have to define. So for every method which have its own ID, its own parameters, we have to define here. So if you can go into the service again, yeah, find by ID. So patient repo we have already defined there. After defining, we have to come here. We have find by ID method. So if again the patient option is null, I mean if the data is not there, or the patient option is empty. In case the patient is not there, the optional will return is empty. It will not throw the exception. So we are putting the both a condition, and this throws the resource not found exception. So this is the custom we are doing, and if the data is there, then it will return that particular data. So yeah, I just used one this URL which is same as here, patient controller URL patient/id. So if you can go to the Postman patient/id1, so the output is 1 ABCD and this. So what if I use something which is not there in the database? We got 500 error, and if we go to the terminal, we have resource not found exception. Enter correct ID of the element as we have coded here, and resource not found exception. Yeah, we can go here, the same thing which we have defined like this. Enter the correct ID of the patient, the same thing which is coming here. So, and we'll return the patient optional dot get whatever we have got if the patient exists, and we are going to return that, and that will be stored in the list and will be displayed in the post or in the console. And yeah, here comes the more twist. Say if you are updating or changing any parameter, any data in the existing data of the database, then we are using this URL where the same thing ID is there, but we are using put mapping because put is used to update the data, and we have this response entity as string because we are not returning the object of the updated patient. We can, but here we are not. We are just returning if it is success or not. So success means it's a string, right? So we are returning in the string. So if we can go to this patient service dot change a patient, and yeah, and patient service is something like we have defined a class. It's like a MVC architecture. Okay, MVC architecture. So in this patient service, we have defined this change a patient. It takes this ID, string name, disease, and int severity here. Okay, here, and we have to annotate this with transactional because it's a transaction, right? Any change or modification into the data is a transaction. So we have to annotate this method as a transaction, and if we can go to this update patient in the repo which we have created, since we are updating something and that updating is specific to our class or our entity class, we have to write the query, SQL query. Those Spring Boot can provide everything. When it comes to the customized or like our own class, we have to do some of the manual task also. Like this is the query, update patient, where p is object, set p name dot name, which we are sending through the postman as like this. So in the same format, whatever the information which we have given in the entity class, we are putting the same thing in a SQL query, and we are using the update patient. You are using update patient of this JPA repository, and this query will be executed whenever this method is called. And yeah, and we have to use this modifying because we are modifying the database, right? So we have to tell that JPA repository explicitly that we are using this one, and hence this works. The same happens for like delete entries and delete everything also. It is similar to the updating. The only thing is that we are using this delete all in batch and delete all ID, delete all in ID in the batch. We are passing the ID to delete a particular element, and we are not passing anything. We are using different method. We are not passing any parameters to delete everything. So again we have to put change parameter and delete all, and change patient, delete patient and delete all, the same thing, the service class which we have defined. If we go inside, like we can see delete all in batch. So if we can go here, this is actually a delete all in batch. We need not specify anything here, but if we can go to the delete batch by ID, since we are using an ID, we have to write an SQL query here to delete from patient. That's it. This is a basic SQL. And how does the data in the in the TXT and image will save? That is because like I have created one more URL called save patients here, right? So in the controller class, if we go, we have created get mapping and the save patients, and here what happens is I have created a saved file in the patient service. So if we can go inside, yeah, I have created the list of the patient we want, and I have created a new array list because like the fetching will be easier, and not fetching, adding and fetching will be easier than linked list. So array list, like it functions using the index, right? So I thought we can go with array list. And the thing is that like since I'm using all the data to store in the file and image, I'm using the method called find all. So it returns me all the data in the database, and I have created one more class, and I have put one method here like this, get data. This is the class which I made file maker, because this generates a file. This I'll explain you. This is all man-made. I mean, I made this one. So what I have done here is I have created a path where a text file has to be stored, and path where the image has to be stored. For to store the text file, I have used only the extensions are different. So what does this do? This I have made public because it has to be, I mean, this has to get data from another class. So what does this do is it takes the list of the patient object, and I'm going to sort based on the severity. So I'm using here, custom comparator. If you can see, the severity is based on increasing order 136, right? So that is achieved by this custom comparator. So this is an actually anonymous inner class, where this method takes the patient list from this get data, right? And a new comparator, where I override this int compare method, and this is the import, and we are using this function integer.compare01.get severity. So since this severity is a data type of integer, we can use integer.compare method, where one severity is compared with another severity, and it is in ascending order, and it returns that value. To return that value, I am using Java 8 stream method. Like it takes the patient list as a stream and sort it. This sort method again takes the custom comparator logic which has been defined here, and it collects to a list and returns it. So after returning, what I'm doing, I'm writing that to file. So if I can go here, I have made these private because only one method should write to a file, no other hand should be inserted, right? So this is called only in this class. So I'm using file class, and a new file will be created if it doesn't exist, and file writer in this file. So writer.write, what does this do? It creates the ID, this is name and severity. So ID, this is name and severity, with a space separated with T tab, and after severity a new line will be inserted by this /n. Then I'll iterate through the loop, and with the help of this writer object, I'm writing everything, get ID and with a space, this is with a space and everything. After that, I'm closing everything and printing this. So how to generate an image? So the image, I have extended this, I have created this class and extended here. If you can go inside this, we have the logic to write the image. So what happens is, I'm calling this make save py method, which is in this image generator class, where it takes a patient list which has to be mapped to a pie chart, and the path where it has to store. So, and if you go here, yeah, exactly, and this throws IO exception. And this takes a map where I'm converting the map to stream, and I'm grouping. Okay, yeah, fine. So you know what, I'm creating a map, and the patient list which has been obtained from the previous class, I'm taking into the stream, and with the help of collectors, I'm grouping by the get severity, because from the severity only I'm mapping, right? So with the severity I'm mapping, and for a pie chart, like we need two, right, x-axis and y-axis. So one axis will be the severity of the patient which is obtained from the list, and collector start counting. So how many are there, that will be count. So 2 access I got. And for this we had to add one dependency in the pom.xml. I'll give the whole project there, you can see this jfree chart. And then we use this method to create data set for as the object of default pie chart set. Since we are using pie chart, I am creating this, and for each data in the map which we have created, we are like setting the value of severity and count. These are the just like labels. And after that we have one class called jfree chart in the same dependency, and the chart factory is a class which creates pie chart or bar chart or whatever we call. And patient severity distribution is something like the name of the thing. Yeah, here you can see the patient severity chart, right? So this name has been given here, and we have a pie plot to plot the chart. We'll cast the object here, and it is circular. We'll set it as true, and then we'll format this decimal format, because like here we can see which is the percentage, like everything, right? So for this we need some decimal formatter in the mathematics, so we'll do that one. And then in the same way we'll put that on a file and let it go, and when it gets executed we'll see everything is done. So this is from the development side. And in the test side, I have created this test class. Test for this we have using Spring Boot test, and this we are mocking patient repo class we have created, right? So this we will mock. This test compares the data given in the test class and the data in the database, or which is actually happening in the development, and if they both are good, then the test passes, else no. So for this we are mocking, we are using Mockito. What, we are mocking this patient repo, and we are doing everything as patient service, and @ test is used to write the test, like everything. So we have created some data, mock data, here, and ps.save is used to save the data, and mockito.verify if this data is coherent with this data, then this data will get passed. Similarly for other case, like get all the patients, if assert true, like the data present there is similar to the data which we are passing, then assert true will come. This returns true, and hence everything will goes like this. Yeah, just making. So while running the test cases, it is good to, I recommend to to just comment out the cache, because there will be some clash between this one and that one. So yeah, hence ran this test case. So yeah, if we can just recall everything, we have created in the main function we have created this thing called patient controller, where all the requests URL has been mapped, and in the patient service class, it is like if conditions has been checked through the validations, and everything is fine, we are using the object of patient repo, which is actually extending this JPA repository to handle the data, save the data, and fetch the data. And patient data, this is just a entity class which has the necessary fields, and since we are doing cache, we are using cache manager, and file maker is used to save everything into the database. not with database, into the file, and it should be annotated with @component, because this is a component, right? It checks the bean. We are using auto wired, that's it. And this one, okay, this is just a normal Java. This is like if you don't want to use any JPA, or if you want to use directly Hibernate, and this is something like the code for Hibernate. Session factory dot save in the transaction and commit the object. This also stores, and entity manager dot process also works. If you're using JAX-RS, then earlier we had to map everything data, this JSON for converter and everything, but Spring does it automatically, so this is not needed as of now. And like if you just want to copy the images from one folder to another folder, we can use this byte array, something like this, uploaded file to byte array, and this works actually. Just showing file part and everything. This actually works, and this will take the name of the file. This works, and this is just used to download the image from the internet, a URL. Just use the output stream to get all the sensitive data which is in the numbers to save into the file. Here we are using hash set, right? Just say yeah, we have created an employee class, and we are in the main method we are using set by default, like we have only unique elements can be stored. Say we are we are using hash set, and both values of the set are 2, and if I run the Java application, then the size is coming as 2. But why? The reason is that we are using hash set, right? So hash set actually performs a hashing operation on every object. So if we are passing 2 objects, then there will be 2 hash codes for 2 different objects, which will be stored in the memory location. What it does is, when equals and hash function actually checks the memory location and not the data of the objects. So if you want to remove this thing, we have to override the equals method and hash code, override, and then if we can run, it shows 1. So that's it for today, and yeah, thank you very much. I'll be putting this code in the description. Thank you very much.